If you are a PhD student or an early career researcher and you want to publish your first academic book, here is how to do it. Hello and welcome. My name is William. I am a researcher in sociology at the University of Warwick in the UK. So this is a video series where I talk about my new book, Muslims in the Neoliberal Empire, Healing, Resisting and Flourishing in the Metacolonial Era. I wanted to talk about the journey of publishing academic books. I've been published with Routledge first in 2017 and lately with Oxford University Press. If you've been a mainstream author, the process of academic publishing is very, very different. Mainstream publishing, you have to go through a literary agent. In the academic route, you have to do everything by yourself from scratch. First, obviously, you have to write the book. I mean, obviously, not really, because, in mainstream publishing, I've heard that you can just pitch your book. You don't have even to write it. You can just pitch it, or your agent, more accurately, has to pitch it to the publisher before you even write the first word. But yeah, in academia, first you have to write it. Let's talk about the structure. If you are writing a book based on your PhD, the structure is very, very different from a dissertation. To make it simple, it has to read like a story. A PhD or a master's dissertation is just like a giant journal article. Introduction, literature review, methodology, findings, discussion, conclusion. If you want to convert this into an academic book, you have to condense the literature review and the methodology in the intro. And the chapters are all about findings organized in different categories. Findings, field notes, and analyzed. You have the discussion. You will basically discuss the validity of these findings throughout the chapters and organized by themes. Or, it can be any other relevant structure, but basically don't do it like an article. Style now. With articles, you've probably learned you have to be very impersonal. It has to be completely detached from your person. I mean, it depends on the journal, but with a book, throw this to the bin. You can, and maybe you have to be personal. The academic publishing world veers towards books that read like stories, which are relatable, which means you have to put yourself in it literally. And I'm going to talk about auto-ethnography or insider ethnography in a further video. The reader must explore the fieldwork or the research with you, alongside you. And that's the human thing. We humans like to read about people's journey. You don't have to reveal your whole life. Why did you ask these questions in the first place? What in your life or in your observations led you to ask these questions? What challenges have you faced? And how your personal life experiences made you reflect on the situation? The more relatable is your research, the more connected to real life issues or personal issues, the easier it's going to be to read, and from a publisher's perspective, the more it's going to sell. Next step is to create a book proposal. It's actually the most important work, more than the book. Why? Because this is the document that you will send to publishers. This is going to tell them why they should publish your book. It's a very difficult exercise for academics because we know that we don't have the monopoly of knowledge. We are not perfect, and our work has a lot, we always need improvement. But a publishing house is a business. They want to make profit from your work, even if you make no money out of it. That's how it works. Email me if you want me to send you the book proposals I've sent to Routledge in Oxford to see how it looks like, the structure. Feel free to copy it. I mean, not word for word, obviously, but it will give you a good idea how to write your own. So you start with a 150-word summary, then a line or two about purpose and aim, 3 unique selling points. What are the 3 points that set your work out from the rest? Then a paragraph about scholarly context and method, and then a chapter breakdown where you summarize every chapter in the 100 words, and then something no one prepares you for: market study. As an academic, yes, you have to produce a market study. So it's answering questions such as: who's going to read your work? Students, researchers, community organizers, policymakers. Why did you choose that publisher? It's kind of a like mini cover letter. And in that market research, you talk about competition. Which books are going to compete with yours? And eventually marketing routes. So what networks do you have access to? Do you have access to particular venues? So how are you going to market your book so people are going to see it? So there's already all that, and it doesn't end here. You have to use, I would say, somehow some pompous vocabulary. We know that our works has limitations, but this is what an editor told me. Publishers receive tons of proposals from humble academics who are realistic and truthful about their work, saying, I'm trying to demonstrate X, Y, and Z. Well, if you want your proposal to stand out, you'll have to write things such as, I'm not exaggerating, as if your work is the best on earth and it's going to change the face of humanity. I have demonstrated that because of X, Y, and Z, these important things happen, and this will change the world. Yeah, it's very contrived. I hate it. Every publisher has different guidelines, different structures for the book proposals. And so you may want to look at every single publishing house you want to pitch it to and look carefully at their guidelines, because you have to tailor the book proposal specifically for every publishing house. To give an idea about the length, it can be anything between 10 to 20 pages. On top of that, they will ask you to submit 2 sample chapters, a CV. Sometimes they ask for references. Sometimes they ask for previously published work, such as articles. And so that's your proposal package. And this is what you're going to tailor and send to every single publisher, starting with the one you want the most, and you finish by the one you want the least. And the final step is to pitch it. And when you pitch it, so you have to find the right editor. For example, let's say you're a sociologist, you want to find the editor for the social sciences, and you pitch it, meaning that first of all, you write a very short email. Hey, how are you? I have this book idea. Would you be interested if I talk about it by any chance? Without submitting any papers or anything. Publishers, they have requirements, expectations, they have a program, and if your topic is not on their schedule list, then are going to say straight away no. So there's no point tailoring your book proposals to them if they are not interested in the topic in the first place. And what happens next? Peer review process. If they're interested in the topic and tell you to send over your proposal, it means that the proposal is going to do 2-3 rounds of review. First round is with the marketing team. They're going to assess if they can actually sell your book, if there is a place in the market for your book. If so, they will send it to 2 anonymous academic reviewers. So this process is going to take a few months. They're going to look at your book proposal and the 2 sample chapters you've provided, and they will get back to the publisher and tell them if, they're very happy with this work, or if they're kind of happy, but this work needs improvement, or they're not happy at all, this is not publishable. So same as for articles, it's going to be reviewer 1, reviewer 2, and if you're very lucky, it's going to be 2 reviewer 1s, and if you're not very lucky, 2 reviewers 2, it happens. But the good news is, even if you get bad reviews, you can always resubmit your proposal, in most cases, and it's going to go through the same process, and hopefully they'll find different reviewers this time. So if your reviewers are happy with your book proposal, this is the time where you sign the provisional contract, which basically says that you agree to providing the whole manuscript by a certain date, and the manuscript has to be an X amount of words. And this is the time where you have to also submit things such as detailed abstracts, keywords for each chapter, and so on, and different pieces of admin. And usually the date is a few months ahead. It can be, usually it's 6 months from the time you sign the contract. So you'll have 6 months to, obviously you've already written the book, so it's going to be basically tweaking the book according to what the reviewers have said. Once the date comes, this is where the proper publishing process begins. You would have submitted the typescript. The publisher is going to send it to a proofreader who is going to read the whole book and point out all the typos, grammar, or just formatting things. Every publisher has a different format for their book, or different style manual they abide by, and so they will be formatting the book according to this style manual, including all the references and endnotes. At this point, you will have to build your index. Some people choose to pay and request the services of someone who professionally does indexes, but I guess, most of us are not super rich and we want to save money. So we're going to do the index by ourselves, which is basically listing the most important keywords in the book and the reference to where in the book they appear. And at that stage, it will be your last chance. Once you get the proofs, it will be your last chance to tweak any content you have in the book. So this process, again, it takes between 6 months to a year, depending on the publisher. Now your book is in press, literally, is getting printed. You have to think about marketing. I mean, usually you have to think even before that. Academic publishers do usually very little marketing. And the reason is because most of them, their target audience is not people, but university libraries. So if you want your book to reach the public, unless you publish with a publisher which has, public outreach in their marketing strategies, or, semi-academic publishers, something, Hearst, Verso, Z Books, Pluto Books, these kind of publishers, most of the time you'll have to do the marketing by yourself. It means literally talking about your book on social media, if you believe in social media, or more effectively, something that always works is talking to your, first of all, academic networks, second, all the networks you have through your fieldwork. If you you've built relationships with fieldwork. I mean, again, I'm talking from social sciences, and I'm assuming that lots of people from, anthropology, sociology, or political sciences, they may have networks, but it might be a bit more difficult if, for example, you are in a field like history, where you don't always have to talk to stakeholders outside of the university, but it's a good idea to build relationships with, either institutions, museums, local institutions, be it, city council, city organizations, community hubs, charities, NGOs, and so on. Nothing beats organic face-to-face marketing. And lastly, one caveat. It's unfair, but just like any other industry, the academic publishing industry is biased and sometimes unfair. Lots of people get publishing contracts, even if they don't have much skills, they don't have a huge CV, they don't know what they're talking about, and just because they know people. It's the same story as, people who get grants because they know someone on the grant panel and so on. And sometimes, it's not even conscious, because if you work for long enough in a field, you will develop relationships with colleagues, with peers, or even friends who happen to be editors, who happen to sit on grant panels, who happen to be the head of department, who happen to be peer reviewers. And if you're lucky enough, you can be invited to publish because someone on the in the press so your friend who knows you very well and wants you to participate. And they want you to write something even if you don't have an idea what you're writing about. And it happened to a friend of mine. So my first book was with Routledge. I pitched it cold. So it means I didn't know anyone at Routledge when I did it. But Routledge, like another big publisher, Palgrave, so they are, I would categorize them as industrial publishers who can afford to publish a high volume of books very, very quickly in an industrial manner. On the other end of the spectrum, university presses are much smaller and are usually much more struggling when it comes to finances. So they have to be much more careful about what do they publish. Because my first book, I don't think it's fantastic work for a publisher that likes to publish on the widest possible range of topics. So they develop a position of monopoly in an industry. That's something that fitted well, but I don't think it would have worked with, smaller university presses at the time. So I wanted to publish my second book with a semi-academic publisher like Hearst, Verso, Pluto books, Z books. And the reason for that is because I wanted to reach a wider audience. I don't want my work to be just for academics. And I didn't want to go with a publisher like Oxford, specifically for this reason. I'm leaving academia, so I don't need one more prestigious name on my CV. And I was really worried about the marketing of the book. But the reason why I ended up with Oxford is, guess what? Someone on the editor's panel insisted I pitch it to them. And they assured me that they will help with marketing. So I said yes, because they are actually a really well-known in the community circles I've been doing field work with. So I trust, it's a matter of trust really. But the book still went through peer review before I signed the contract. Thankfully it got positive reviews. Would someone who is writing adapting their PhD dissertation, who is a fresh PhD graduate, would have been given the same chances and same opportunities as me? Knowing the people on the panel, I think they're kind people. They would consider a broad range of work, but I know that it's only very specific to that specific topic in the industry where I'm specialized in. And this is not something you can generalize for the whole industry. I don't believe that. So that's the journey. If you want to, again, have a look at my book proposals, please email me and I will send it to you. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about some tips and techniques to make your work more relatable, more enjoyable to read for the average reader. And again, this is something more for those who are in humanities and social sciences, anthropology. And if you, by any chance, are interested in the topic I talk about in the book, which is about how the society colonizes us and what we can do about it, please subscribe to my newsletter. There's some live events coming up and live online events on Zoom where you can have access to some of the content of the book, and we'll have conversations around that. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you very much for your attention, and again, take care of yourselves and each other.